Welcome, Democrats. Thank you for coming. Are you all here?
Yeah.
Everybody breathing?
Yeah.
Everybody paying attention?
Yeah.
I better be good. Okay, so the Medal of Freedom was awarded. What a joke. I have an alternative selection. Mitt Romney.
Oh, yes.
What do you think about those apples, guys? Actually, a senator, Republican, of principle? Man's got some chutzpah. We should all send them a brisket. What do you think, guys? You ladies get busy in the kitchen, send them a brisket? Ladies is no good?
How about you men start cooking?
Oh, I see, okay.
Why don't you buy him some rubber?
All right. How about we buy him some rubber? Is that better? Much better. I escaped alive. Thank you so much. Okay, so we had some excitement. The shredders weren't working in Washington. Miss Pelosi had to do it manually. What do you think about that, guys? And all those, are they ladies? We get in trouble. Dressed in white? Oh my God. They were amazing. And how'd you like this split screen? On the left-hand side, they were raucous. On the right-hand side, there was a morgue. There was a funeral. What do you think about that? Anybody have anything to say about how the president installed good feelings and united the country last night? Anybody have anything to say about that? Come on, you always have something to say about everything. What do you think?
Not worth talking about.
Not worth talking about. You know, I think you said a mouthful. I'm with you on that one. Anybody want to bring up any issues why Democrats don't win? Well, Hillary won by 2.5 million votes. What was it, 3? I'm going to go with Harvard.
2.8.
3.8 million?
2.8.
2.8 million, something like that. Okay, sounds like a lot of votes. But we forgot about the Midwest.
She forgot about it.
I guess so. I guess she forgot about the Midwest. So this time around, you know, I'm not a Bernie Sanders fan, but I can't blame Bernie for forgetting about the Midwest. So I think this time around, they're not going to forget about the Midwest. This is sort of an answer to your question. There's a whole lot of energy and effort going on. Palm Beach Democratic Party is working very, very hard to get the vote out. There are new offices being opened. Their clubs are being revitalized. There's more money being poured into it. And, you know, Trump's got a very loud horn. But in the midterms that just finished, he got creamed in 2 governorships in 2 red states that they were supposed to win. So I think Democrats need to hold their head up high and realize that the election is coming, and if we just get out and vote, and who the nominee will be taken care of. Remember, Trump emerged from 16 Republicans, and it was a circus, and everybody said it was a circus, and everybody laughed at him. Well, now he's being taken seriously, and our candidate is going to emerge. And now we got $55 billion involved in the campaign. Just saying, with a pledge that no matter who the candidate is, those $55 billion will work for the candidate. So I'm sort of thinking that maybe this is our year, and that we have to listen to Ed Sol and get the vote out, folks. Because in the end, it's all about voting. You can talk about it, you can dice it, you can say why Bernie did this or why that one did that. You know, But if you get the vote out and you do it distinctively, you're going to get the kind of results you want. I have one more little tidbit that I saw, if I can find it, let's see. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
No.
No. No, we're not gonna do any questions. This is a monologue, and
After Dave.
After Dave, okay, I'm gonna do one more bit. Turn it over to Dave. Let him do his Morning Joe magic, and then we'll take all the questions you want. How's that sound?
Yeah.
No, it's
Thank you.
good. I wanted to ask.
Thank you. In any event, okay, there's a flash from Washington that just came in. In the aftermath of Pete Buttigieg's strong showing in Iowa caucus, Donald J. Trump accused the former South Bend, Indiana mayor of engaging in suspicious travel to Afghanistan.
Oh, my God.
People are saying that he went to Afghanistan for 7 months in 2014, Trump told the host of Fox and Friends in a phone call. 7 months is a long time to be running around in a Muslim country full of terrorists, don't you think? He added that Buttigieg reportedly had a gun with him while he was in Afghanistan. A fact that Trump said, sounds fishy to me. Let's see you fly all the way to a Muslim country full of all those terrorists who need guns, and you're bringing a gun into a country like that, Trump said. Who was he planning to give the gun to? I don't know if he was part of some caliber or just helping them out, but we ought to find out, he said. I have a call into the president of Afghanistan.
Oh, my God.
Trump said that his suspicion about Buttigieg's totally unexplained travel to Afghanistan spiked when he saw a photo of the former mayor dressed up in some kind of weird camouflage suit. You have to see this picture. He's all dressed up in cameo or whatever, like he's ready for some kind of battle, Trump said. You'll never find a picture of me dressed like that. Okay, so here we have it. And on that note, I'm going to turn this over.
Tell him it came from New York Magazine.
All right, it came from New York Magazine,
It was a joke.
and it's satire, folks.
Yes.
Okay? So this is Andy Borowitz, and he is the premier political satirist from the New Yorker Magazine. And I get a kick out of it. In any event, okay, we will now turn the show over to our state Attorney General, or better known from his fame on Morning Joe, Dave Aronberg.
Good evening, Democrats.
Yay!
All right, good evening, Democrats.
Woo!
All right. Hey, I'm so grateful to be here because this is the club that helped launch my original state senate campaign years ago when I was a wide-eyed 21, right? 29, I was 30, but you know, thank you, right? Now I'm 32, and you know, as Jack Benny said, now I'm 39, right? Actually, 48. Can you believe that?
Woo!
Yes, I know. But I still have that same energy because I get inspired by the greatest generation. So thank you for all your service. And I even have tonight a special occasion. I even have my parents who have showed up from West Delray right here. My mom and dad. Oh, well, it's okay. You can wait. That's good.
She looks younger than you.
They're good Democrats too. And now you've just made my mom's day when you just said that my mom looks younger than I do. Now, there you go, Mom. See, that's why you come out here for stuff like this, for content like this. I know it's a late night, and I want to apologize for being late myself because before I got here, I was at the opening of the Addiction Stabilization Unit at John F. Kennedy Hospital over in 45th Street in North County. What is so important about that facility is that, and this has been years in the making, it is the first countywide facility to take people who overdose on drugs, usually it's opioids. And instead of pumping them with Narcan and releasing them out in the streets to overdose again and again and again, this breaks the cycle of addiction. This gives them follow-up care, medically assisted treatment to end the addiction and provide a lasting recovery. It's something that shows that Palm Beach County continues to be at the forefront on fighting the opioid epidemic. In addition to our Sober Homes Task Force, that's made 103 arrests, that has helped clean up the sober home and drug treatment industries, we now have other programs like the stabilization unit, like we have more Narcan on the streets. We have a very progressive approach to this because you can't arrest your way out of a drug epidemic. You need good prevention and rehabilitation. And so we've got all the above. And as a result, in 2018, we lowered the opioid overdose death rate by 40% in Palm Beach County. 40%. It is something that way exceeded anywhere else in the country. So we're very proud of that. So that's something we're doing as state attorney for Palm Beach County, along with other elected officials in the county. And I was up there today, so I want to say I apologize for being a little late and for just being slightly under the weather. It's been a crazy day. I think it's the allergies from being outside. It was a ribbon cutting that we stood out there for a while. It was years in the making, this grand opening, this ribbon cutting. Originally, they were going to have this facility at the county stockade. Can you imagine having it at the stockade? We're going to give you help. Help is on the way. You're going to the stockade. So this is a little more inviting environment for people. All right, now, another thing I want to mention before I get into my hobby, I should say, my morning hobby of going on live TV to talk law and politics, because I think you want to hear some cool stories, right? All right, well, Amendment 4.
Yes.
Everyone here I know likely supported it. 2/3 of Florida voters supported it. But the legislature didn't like it because too many of them believe in voter suppression. I detest voter suppression. So our office has been working with ACLU and Legal and Voters and the Public Defender's Office and the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition and members of various clubs in a bipartisan way to try to fulfill the promise of Amendment 4. What we've done is the legislature is saying you need to complete all of your requirements of your sentence. And they say that includes the court costs and fees, even if you cannot afford them. Meaning that you have to pay your court costs, not the fines, not the restitution. We're talking about court costs. And if you don't pay it, you get interest that compounds. And that, to some, is like a poll tax. It's going to prevent you from voting. A federal judge pretty much said that. So what we've done in this county is that we've gone back and we have an agreed order with the Public Defender's Office. We created this after months of meetings to ask the court in each case that someone applies to get the right to vote back, that they go back and they separate the court costs and fees from the sentence. They'll still be owed, but they will not prevent someone from being eligible to register to vote. Because there's nothing more fundamental than the right to vote. And because you cannot afford your court costs and fees should not prevent you from voting. That's not what the voters intended when they passed Amendment 4. And that's why it's important for the courts to go along with what we are doing. Now, the Supreme Court of Florida gave an advisory ruling for the governor. The governor asked them for an advisory ruling, gave the governor everything he wanted. But we are still moving ahead with what we're doing here in Palm Beach County. Again, we are taking the lead in the state to make sure that the people's will is fulfilled. So, I say this because we're still moving ahead. If you know someone, we need to get the word out, because only about 30 people have taken advantage of this. Only about 30 people have said, hey, I want to go through the process. It doesn't cost anything. They go to the Public Defender's Office. We have an agreed motion. They get their sentence separated, their costs separated, and then they can register to vote. The hope is that the Secretary of State in Tallahassee, because of the Supreme Court ruling, doesn't try to play games with this. So, I want you to hear what the governor said about this. The governor, DeSantis, when the Supreme Court came out with its ruling, said the following. I have it right here. I want you to tell me what's wrong with this. This is what he said. Now remember, the Supreme Court gave him everything he wanted in the ruling. Oh, I had it, and now I had it, I lost it. This is like
The Iowa app.
here it is. Ron DeSantis, his own Twitter account. I am pleased that the Florida Supreme Court confirms that Amendment 4 requires fines, fees, and restitution be paid to victims before their voting rights may be restored. By the way, fees are not paid to victims. Fees are paid to the court. Most people who are not able to afford the right to vote is because of court costs and fees. An overwhelming majority, 70+%, that's what's keeping most people from registering to vote. And he said, voting is a privilege that should not be taken lightly, and I am obligated to faithfully implement Amendment 4 as it is defined. What's wrong with that, what I just said? What's wrong with what he wrote?
Voting's a right.
It's a right.
Amendment 4 says.
Voting is a right.
Voting is a right, not a privilege. And that shows you, you know what they say a gaffe is when a politician tells the truth. And here was a gaffe that the governor's own Twitter account came out and said that he believes that voting is a privilege. Well, you know what? Don't just take it from me. You look up the 15th Amendment to the United States Constitution. It's in there. We all have the right to vote. And that's the mentality of people in Tallahassee. They think that they can get in the way of voting, that they are more powerful than the Constitution. Sound familiar?
Yes.
Right. And you know what? Amendment 4 passed with a greater percentage of the vote than the governor received in his race, or that any member of the legislature in total votes received. So we have an obligation to implement it. So you've been really great to endure the policy that we're dealing with at the state attorney's office. Now let me give you the fun stuff. Morning Joe. How many of you watch Morning Joe? All right, you get up early. Mom and Dad didn't raise their hand, but I know they watch it, especially when their son's on. They record it. Thank you for getting up early. It's on from 6 to 9, and I do these shows generally from there's a small little studio on Vernia Street, downtown West Palm Beach, not far from where I live. So I go there, and there's a one person there. He gets up early, and he has the camera. It's amazing. It's beamed to 1.5 million people, and I'm there with the thing in my ear, and I'm loaded up on caffeine because I'm not really a morning person, and I hear them, and I respond to questions. I know what the topics generally will be. I don't, sometimes they'll change the topics on you at the last minute. But they'll tell you in advance, hey, we're going to change the topic. We sent you an email with an article we'd like you to discuss. You've got 2 minutes. And it's live TV, and you know what's so exhilarating about it is a few things. First, you know that your next sentence could be your last. It's live TV. And also, it gives me a chance to express not just my legal analysis, because I enjoy making legal principles accessible to people. People who may get intimidated by some of these crazy Latin words, and you see some of these other folks on TV who are giving you some real technical stuff. I like to bring it home to people. But also it gives me a chance to talk politics too, to an audience I know that generally agrees with my political views, which is great. And in this job as state attorney, I'm elected as a Democrat, but when you're in the office, you have to act in a nonpartisan way, because after all, when you call 911, they never ask you if you're a Democrat or Republican, do they? No. So you got to do equal justice under the law, and I take that very seriously. But outside of the office, I'm allowed to have my own views. I've got the First Amendment right, and I love expressing them. And so when you hear lines like, for example, I said that Bill Barr is there to protect President Trump. President Trump wants him to be his defender. He wants him to be his consigliere. But it's been such a disaster that it's more like Godfather 3 without the first 2 movies. And when I said that, the Nick Mulvaney press conference, remember that when he said get over it? I called it a clown show. And I said that Rudy Giuliani The Rudy Giuliani of 30 years ago would have prosecuted the Rudy Giuliani of today. I enjoy saying these things because I try to give a little color. You have a lot of people who are very smart analysts on TV, but I try to add a little flavor to it. Like the one that was in the advertisement, which you got, I think it was a great advertisement. The had my picture and had TV star in it, which has made my mom happy, but I need to do a little more to become in that, to be called TV star. Right now I do like 5 minutes a week, so maybe there'll be more in my future. But you never know. So I said this, we're talking about impeachment. And I said, you know, Dershowitz saying that, who by the way was my law professor in law school.
Ooh.
Yeah, yeah, he was. It was 25 years ago.
Lock him up.
By the way, in law school, I lived first year with this very conservative, know-it-all guy.
Ted Cruz.
Yeah, Ted Cruz. He lived in the same dorm. Oh, yeah. I know. Yeah. He looks older than that.
Yeah.
Doesn't he? Okay, good. Thank you. I've aged better. Thank you.
It's the evil beard he has.
Right. Yes. Well, all right. Well, so I said how disappointed I was in Professor Dershowitz because he made this crazy argument that said that since all elected officials believe they are acting in the public interest when they run for election, then they can do just about anything, and that's fine, because it's in the public interest. And that's, of course, just writes out of the Constitution the impeachment clause. That makes the president into a king. And so I said, you know, Professor Dershowitz is a criminal defense lawyer. He is not a constitutional law professor. If you want a constitutional law professor, go see Larry Tribe, who's on TV. He will tell you the opposite of what Professor Dershowitz said. I gotta say, I never had Professor Tribe. I didn't get that lucky to have him as my constitutional law professor. I had a different professor. Tribe was the one everyone wanted. But, you know, I didn't have him. But, so I complained about this. I'm talking about it. And that's when I said, what will it take to ever convince some of these people that a president deserves impeachment? If not this, what would it take? Maybe lying about sex. But only if you're a Democrat. And so that's what I said. I love doing it, and I get, you know, responses from people that's you know, and so it's fun. It's enjoyable, and I'll give you one a quick story about that. Something I've learned in doing this, and then I'll take your questions. So one thing I've learned is how to put on makeup. Okay, I don't want to be sexist like other people up here and say that and say that you know, it can be men or women could wear makeup, but those of you who wear makeup, I want to say, number one, I had no appreciation prior to this, plus how expensive it can be. So when I do my own makeup, you know, and I had a professional do it once when I did one of these hits, but now I do it, and they said, this is what you need. You need to buy this stuff called MAC. MAC powder for your face. That's the only makeup. By the way, when I say makeup, I mean powder. You know, you don't want to be schwitzing on TV. That's a technical legal term that we use. You don't want to be schwitzing on TV. So I said, I went and I went online, I found the MAC, and they said, okay, you need number 33 or 30. Okay. You know what that means, Karen? I don't know. All right, that's right? Yeah, so I looked it up. So I found 33 on Amazon. So I bought it, it was expensive, and I got it. It was the wrong shade. Let me tell you, I put it on, I looked like George Hamilton. I had this like Charlie Chris tan, not orange tan, like a real dark tan. And I said, this is crazy. I had to add some white center to it. Oh, so now I'm a pro now. I went to Sephora. Here's the thing, guys. When you go to Sephora, you have no idea. They give you all these free gifts. It's not even your birthday they give you gifts. And then on your birthday they give you more. They hear more gifts. But the problem is they saw me coming. I walked in there, a clueless guy, and just said, hi, I'm looking for makeup. Oh, they descended upon me. They had me buying everything. I finally said, no, I don't need all this. I just need some powder for my face, and that's it. So finally the manager called them off and gave me some powder, and it works just fine. If you see, I have a makeup bag in my briefcase. Yeah, it's a Ziploc bag. It's a little Ziploc bag. That's it. So that's show business. I don't get paid for doing it. But I do love it. It's a great opportunity, and like I said, I hope to do more. So I want to say thank you. You know, my day job is my most important job, and that is being your state attorney, keeping our community safe, saving lives from this opioid epidemic, standing up for victims of crime, and making sure that our seniors in our community are protected from scams, which is another topic for another day, and I have already spoken about that topic previously, and I hope you'll have me back so we can talk about it again. But thank you all so much, Democrats. I love being here. Oh, let me finish with this. Here's something. I hope that my message out there, when I talk about these issues, whether it's the corruption of Rudy Giuliani, or Bill Barr, or problems with Alan Dershowitz, I hope it resonates with the public. Because we live in the swingingest of swing states. Yes, I know all the attentions about Iowa and New Hampshire, but the most important prize in November is right here in Florida. Your votes matter more because it is a swing state with 29 electoral votes. So God bless you in everything you do, because when you turn Florida blue, you turn our country blue in November. So thank you all so much for listening to me tonight.
Hey, but that's your makeup bag.
You got the makeup bag. That's a big makeup bag. So let's take some questions. And let's start right here with Fred, members of the media.
Yes, thank you. Two questions. There was a release this week that you did a very large, what I guess they call data dump. Oh yeah, sure. You created a website and released all of the publicly available documents on the Epstein case, which just as a point of information started many years and several administrations before you took office, correct?
Correct.
Right. I went to that website just to be informed as a member of the public, and I don't know if you're aware of it, but on 3 devices, iPhone, iPad, and my Dell computer, the videos, there were some walkthroughs of Epstein's mansion, they don't play properly. They stop, they start, they stop, they start, number one. Number two, there's a lot of pixelation, like there's some nude sculpture on the wall. You see it for a flash, and I could actually get a screenshot, and then it's pixelated. So what's going on with that? Why is the video quality so poor? It's not prurient interest. I mean, if you're releasing something, why not release it the way you're seeing it, so the public has the same view? That's my first question.
All right. Now, if there are problems with videos, let me know. Send me the links to the ones that there's issues. The nudity would be pixelated, and that's something that is actually, there are exemptions under the public records law for pornography, and so if there's some pornography out there, that would be.
Well, no, it wasn't really pornography. You would see something like this in an art museum. But all right. Also, the interviews with the victims. All right, I understand why they're blurred out,
Right.
protect their identity, but they don't play properly either. They're just jerky. I just want you to check that out.
Thank you for looking at it. If you would send me the links that are not working properly, I can see if that is something that is a technical problem, or if that was something that was intentional because of redactions that needed to happen.
No, it's just stops and starts, like very jerky. All right, my other.
Let me, if I can say something about that too. So the Epstein case occurred years prior to my ever getting to the state attorney's office. But thank you for complimenting my mom. I appreciate it. Thank you. Well, so the Epstein case occurred several years and several administrations before I ever got to the state attorney's office. And there was a false story out there, a rumor that somehow our office was trying to block the grand jury documents. So what we did was we put everything out there and said, all right, here's everything that has been produced. Everything you see on the internet has been produced already. It's every public record in our possession. We're hiding nothing. It's all out there. There are some redactions by law that needed to happen, but everything we have is now on the web. So there's no more, we're trying to answer all the false rumors on the internet that somehow we're trying to block the grand jury. As for the grand jury documents, those are in the possession of the court in Palm Beach County. The state attorney's office has never held grand jury documents. We don't hold them. I've never seen them. And so I wanted to clear up, there's some misconceptions and false rumors on the internet. And this was our way of not only giving full transparency, but also clearing up some false stories that are out there.
Dave, my second question, if I may. On the Orchids of Asia case, on the Orchids of Asia case, there was a court ruling, I think it was Martin County, where a lot of the video evidence that was grabbed, I believe through your office or the police, I'm not sure which, was suppressed because of, they said that they gathered more information they should have. Innocent people that went into this spa, women and men, for legitimate therapeutic massages were filmed nude. It's been said that that evidence should be destroyed because it wasn't relevant to the case. Can you give us an update on the status of those videos?
There may have been up to four people who were going for legitimate massages who were recorded. And those people were not charged. And there are broad public records laws, and I can't talk about too much because the case is pending, but there is no danger that the innocent people will be exposed. So there is no danger to that. But I can't talk any more about a pending case.
Yeah, have me ice cream.
No, I gotta shoot. I can't eat.
Thank you for the comment.
Have ice cream, you shoot.
I have a question. What do you think about fascism in America? Because the Republican Party are acting just like fascists during the 1930s. You know, I've been doing a research project on these organizations, and they sound awful like that. So my question to you is, fascists in America, are we have to worry about this country becoming a fascist state?
Well, I think the answer to that is no, but I think that our institutions, although they are holding up, they are being challenged to an extent that I never imagined would be challenged. And I think that the best way to ensure that our democracy flourishes is by electing a new president in November. Yeah, because the Attorney General, you cannot count on the Attorney General to protect the rule of law when he is acting more like President Trump's personal defense lawyer than as the Attorney General of the United States. I worry about that, but as far as fashion, no, I don't believe that is upon us.
The Boone Party, we had a number of them. I have a list of about 20 groups that were here talking about anti-Semitism, a whole bunch of issues, which is exactly what the Republican Party is about.
It is
so
a...
maybe call fascist.
Right. I wouldn't go so far to call them, to throw around the fascist term, but there are things that I've seen that are very troubling, and the same things that you have seen, and the threats against the press. I mean, my dad, the thing that he was really disturbed by was when the president called the chairman of the Federal Reserve the enemy of the people. Imagine. I mean, but there's so many, the press, we've gone, yes, I mean, that's happened so many times, we all know about that, but to call then the chairman of the Fed because you disagree with his policy on interest rates is the enemy of the people. You know what? Yeah. Who hired him anyways? Who appointed that guy?
Trump.
Oh, that's right. So, it just, we've become so hardened to it, a nerd to it. It's like that frog in the boiling water that eventually the heat gets turned up and doesn't realize it because it's happened so gradually that the frog gets boiled. Well, that's where we are. We're gradually, these threats to our democracy continue, and we don't even notice it. We don't even talk about it anymore when something like this happens.
But you would put a label.
I don't need the.
Yes.
Why is it that DeSantis did not put the gun law on the ballot?
DeSantis doesn't have the ability to put anything on the ballot. It's only the legislature or the people through the vote. Now, it's up to the Supreme Court whether the language and all the signatures qualify to put it on the ballot. And I guess they didn't reach the level to get on the ballot, but apparently it was going to be on the ballot, they think, in 2022, but not 2020.
Yeah.
But the Supreme Court found that it didn't reach it didn't qualify this time. It wasn't
Today
DeSantis.
a policeman was killed too.
Today.
Yeah.
Yes, it was a tragedy.
Today is not,
FHP.
every day.
FHP patrolman. Yeah, awful, tragic. Yeah, and then we'll get yes.
Well, thanks again for coming. It's always a pleasure to hear you. Two quickies about DeSantis appointee Wendy Link. Has she come to any of those committee meetings with you and Kerry Howard to try to help to get these people to be able to vote vis-a-vis Amendment 4? And secondly, in terms of Russians hacking into us, is there anything you could do to follow up, to somehow or other go over her so that it doesn't happen here in Palm Beach County, a very strong Democratic stronghold?
Yeah. She didn't appear herself, but she did send a representative at one of the meetings. And as far
Does
as...
she contribute to that?
Well...
She does nothing.
Well, we have not had any resistance from that office, so we have not had any
Yeah,
resistance.
well, she'll just send it up to Tallahassee.
Yeah, well, what happens is when people will go to the court, get their rights restored to vote, and then they'll fill out the form, and then the problem is going to be, I think, with the Secretary of State in Tallahassee, who's the head person, because of this advisory ruling by the Florida Supreme Court. That's where I'm most
Are they
concerned.
on in any of those 30? No.
Are they what? Are they on? Well, they haven't rejected them yet, but we'll see.
We hope.
Well,
For the best.
and the second part of your questions is,
In terms of the Russians
Oh,
hacking
the Russians hack.
into Palm Beach County and Broward County.
if there's any state laws that are violated, then I would have jurisdiction. But a lot of the hacking is like federal laws, and that would be prosecuted by federal prosecutors. Actually, I do have faith in our U.S. Attorney's Office and career prosecutors who are in those offices. Obviously, don't trust Bill Barr to do the right thing for the United States.
That's Roy Coleman.
Roy Coleman, right? But I do believe in the people who work in those offices, like in the Southern District of New York and the Southern District of Florida. You have real patriotic Americans who are under a lot of pressure, but they're doing the right thing. Remember, hey, Roger Stone is going to be sentenced tomorrow. That should make a good topic for Morning Joe this week. What do you think?
Yeah.
So we'll see. Yes, ma'am.
When we defeat Trump, can we get rid of Barr?
Yes.
Of course.
So he can be fired.
Oh, yes. He can be impeached, too. Barr can be impeached.
Oh, I'd love
But
to see.
it'll be the same result as we saw with Trump, if he is. But every president can choose his or her attorney general.
And they can
And
both
I have a feeling that
put on trial.
if and when a Democrat wins in November, that Democrat will very likely choose a different attorney general. One who believes in the rule of law.
What about Kavanaugh?
Kavanaugh is still on the bench, and that is something you should never forget. Merrick Garland. Never forget that name. How Mitch McConnell refused to even hear, forget advise and consent, they refused for the first time in history even to hear the nomination of the president's choice, even though they had unanimously voted him on to the Circuit Court of Appeals just recently before that. Yes.
Couple of questions.
Yes.
In your talk, you said the 15th Amendment gives the right to vote, but it's very specific. I did look it up, as you suggested, about race, color, and previous servitude. It did not give women the right to vote. So I believe there should be a right, but there is not. We have to fight for it up and down, left and right, but we can't go as far as saying it is written in the Constitution.
Well, it is. The amendments are part of the Constitution.
The amendments are, but there is not a broad right to vote to anybody.
Well, there is in the general Constitution. The 19th Amendment would affect women's right to vote, so that's in there. But the 15th, what does it say? What does it say in the 15th Amendment? Read it out.
All right. The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude.
There you go.
And Section 2, Congress shall have the power to enforce this article.
And the way that's written, it says the right to vote. So right now you have the right to vote. Our right to vote. That's what it says. You have the right to vote. And it says it shall not be taken away based on race. That's in case you try to take it away based on race. You have that right to vote. And it's interesting though, when that passed, it took how many more years after that for women to get the right to vote? Right? Because women did not have the right to vote before that. That codified the right to vote, but not for women until the 19th Amendment, which happened 1920?
90 years later.
90 years later. Incredible. And by the way, I have learned that women are the smarter voters. I mean, it's just a fact. If women ruled the world, you'd have a Democratic president, a Democratic Congress, and a Supreme Court that valued women's rights. So, yeah.
And just as a quick follow-up to your other point about the amendment, I was the luckiest guy in the world in 2018 to work on the campaign staff to help pass the amendment. But on the phone banks, we did tell people, all terms of your sentence, including restitution.
Correct.
That is what people voted for, restitution.
Correct.
This whole broad smoosh of everything else, yes, but restitution was absolutely part of it. I'd like to hear just a little more commentary about what's happening. I've heard about a rocket docket in Miami-Dade. 30 is like crazy. We have just a few months before the election. What can happen to speed up, whatever?
Now, the restitution, I agree. I think restitution should be paid because what happens is that you have someone who commits financial fraud, someone who embezzled, and they may not get as strict of a sentence, but in return, they have to pay everyone back. And that's important. You know, they should have to pay back all the victims. That's different than court costs and fees, which are just paid to the court and which have acted like a poll tax. Now, as far as how are we going to get the message out, because 30 is not enough. We are working with the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition and other groups, League of Women Voters, to get the message out. It is very frustrating. That's something that someone like Mike Bloomberg could really help with. You want to help swing, you know, turn Florida blue, let everyone vote. And that's something that the word has to get out. Now, I fear that even if we get everyone registered, the Secretary of State is going to say, and so it's going to be up to the federal court, the federal judiciary. And right now, the initial federal ruling was positive for us, saying that you cannot impose these financial restrictions to prevent people from voting. The federal court even took it farther and even mentioned restitution. So we're going to see where this goes in federal courts. The difference between the federal court and the state Supreme Court is that the federal court actually had a case before it. That's precedent. The Florida Supreme Court decision was just an advisory opinion. The governor just said, hey, court, I know I just appointed 3 of your 7 members. I'd like an opinion about this. And lo and behold, he got a 6-to-1 opinion that gave him what he wanted. All right, we have a microphone there? Yes, ma'am.
What is your view about the next Democrat president adding more Supreme Court judges? Yeah,
that's like the FDR court packing scheme. I don't love it. I don't think we need to do it yet. That's why we need to elect a Democratic president. We need to make sure that God pray for the good health of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and just never let something like Merrick Garland happen again. I mean, that was crazy. You know, we could have done a recess appointment. There were things that could have been done, but we just assumed that Hillary would win, and this would all be moved. Look how it is. Yes, sir.
Hi. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Talk a little bit about the president versus the rest of us, or the rest of the legislature and the rest of us, with the checks and balance system. How's it working?
It doesn't work when the legislature refuses to do its job and bows down to the executive branch. Just imagine if the Democrats did not win the House. You would have a total whitewash of everything that the president has done. There are no investigations, a total lie down, a total cover-up. You know, you've had that in the Senate. But at least you have the evidence now out because you have courageous people in the House, people who did the right thing. And so checks and balances, it's not going so well. It's not going so well because the founding fathers imagined that you'd have a legislature that would assert its independence from the executive branch and wouldn't give its power over to the executive branch. The legislature was supposed to be arguably the most powerful branch. That's why it's in Article 1 of the Constitution. Article 1 is the Congress. But the Republican Party is now the party of Trump. And their oath is to him. Yes.
I want to say when you come on Morning Joe, there's a lot of excitement in our house. Look, he's on TV, he looks so good, he sounds so good. Did you hear that, Mom?
Hear that, Mom?
Mom. Did you hear that?
Mom, did you hear that?
She didn't hear that at all.
You didn't hear that at all?
Oh, not at all.
Oh, she's too busy, you know what? What is busier than hearing a compliment about your son, Mom?
Okay, when Michael Moore was on one of the late night shows, he suggested that we call our state senators, and many of us took the numbers down.
U.S. senators.
Oh, yes, our U.S. senators, right. So we called, they asked what state, and you get to leave a message. What is the best way to contact and make our voices heard?
It's to do that. It is to reach out, because even if it's a member of the other party, it's good that you express your viewpoint, because politicians don't like conflict. And if they think that they're going to have to face angry voters back at home, it does influence them. Now, like I said, Republican senators are very loyal to this president. And it's not going to change their vote. But you don't want it to make it too easy on them. You want to put a little bug in their head like, hey, remember when the Tea Party wave happened and they were showing up at all these town hall meetings? And they caused a lot of ruckus. They were a small group because they were loud, they were vocal, and they were showing up places. By the way, what happened to the Tea Party? I just saw that we have $1 trillion deficits now, the largest in history. Yeah. Wait till the Tea Party finds out about this. They're going to be angry and rally in the streets. Yeah. Yeah, they only care if it's a Democratic president.
The Koch brothers are in.
Next year, we're going to have redistricting.
Yeah.
And the last redistricting, I actually did the audit on the software. I caught the Republicans cheating and testified to that fact. Basically, what they were doing is they took the name of my district builder, and we passed a law that saying that we didn't want to have any more gerrymandering in the state of Florida.
That's right.
Now, to this day, the software was never in compliance with our state constitution. They left out a key component called geospatial software, which catches gerrymandering. They give it a code and a number. That was left out on both the Senate version of my district builder and the House version of my district builder. What can we do? Because next year we're going to have a major problem with that.
The courts are going to have to sort it out, but the unfortunate thing is because the Republican governor just stacked the court with all of his conservative ideologues, that it's going to be a lot harder to convince the state Supreme Court to throw out the maps. We couldn't even get the state Supreme Court to throw out the maps for when we had Democratic state Supreme Court. So it's going to be I am very worried about redistricting. I think the answer is to support Eric Holder's efforts at the federal level. He and President Obama have been working at this at the federal level. See what they're doing. They're trying to change it nationally. And I think there's some hope there. I mean, that's the most important thing.
It's going to change at all.
Well, yeah, I mean,
unless we file a complaint that doesn't match the...
You can file the complaints with the courts and hope the courts will do the right thing, but the U.S. Supreme Court came out with its terrible gerrymandering decision that pretty much says that federal courts aren't even going to consider these things anymore. So it's coming up to the state courts, and now we saw what happened with our state Supreme Court. So I am very concerned about that. Yeah.
That's going to be a major problem.
And that's why you need a constitutional amendment. And that's why you need something like what Eric Holder and President Obama are doing. Check out what they're doing online.
We're going to take one last question. Yeah, that's right. Last question.
I'm changing the subject. I'm changing the subject a little bit. What's happening with Corey Jones?
Okay.
I worked with Barry Silver trying to make sure that that guy, Ross, has got locked up. I mean, what is happening now?
Did you see the Super Bowl?
No.
There was a commercial
Yes,
at the Super Bowl from Anquan Boldin's foundation that had the Corey Jones case aired throughout the world. They didn't mention our office at it, but he mentioned about the Corey Jones case, and it was a really powerful ad. But our office is the first office in 30 years in this state to convict an on-duty police officer for a shooting that occurred, obviously.
It took a hell of a long time.
Well, you know why it took a long time? Because we wanted to get it done right. There are other cases throughout the country that lose, and you see they make the arrest early on, and they don't wait till all the evidence comes in. We wanted to make sure we got it right. We wanted to make sure we got a conviction in this case.
And now we're trying to appeal again.
Right, but because we did it right, we feel very confident in the jury verdict and think that the sentence will be upheld.
Is he in jail now?
Oh, he's in prison, yes. Oh, he's in jail. He's in jail. He is. Yes, and so I'm very confident because I know when we went through appeals, I said, what's happening? But these cases are very difficult. They're very complex, and you only get one shot at it. Once you file those charges, once you charge, the clock runs. And if you don't have all your ducks in a row, you're going to lose the case. Remember in Maryland, in the, I think it was the Freddie Gray case, where the state attorney there arrested everyone right off the bat. They lost every case. Every single one. And there have been a string of losses throughout the country. But here in Palm Beach County, our state attorney's office, we're able to convict a rogue officer, because he does not represent all the good law enforcement officers out there, but an officer who killed Corey Jones.
He wasn't an officer then.
He was.
No, he was plainclothesman.
But he was on duty. He was still an officer. He just didn't identify himself.
He was not on duty.
Yeah, he definitely was on duty. He was on duty. He was.
Didn't have a uniform, didn't have a car.
Right. He was unmarked car, and he was undercover, but he was definitely on duty. And he said that he told Corey Jones, "Police, may I help you?" And then Corey Jones put a gun up.
You know what? I believe that gun was in the glove compartment, and it never went out, and that cop took it out of the glove compartment, put it on the ground,
It's possible.
to make it look like he did it.
It's
That's
possible.
the way I believe.
It's possible. It's possible. There is no evidence. By the way, when they found the gun, the safety was still on.
That's right. That's right.
And the audio tape we got, and that was one of the greatest things, because had we not had that audio tape, it would have been very difficult, because it would have been only 2 witnesses at the scene, and one of them was dead. And because we had the audio tape, we learned that the police officer, we had proof that the police officer was lying, and that Corey Jones was not the aggressor. The cop was the aggressor. And the jury, an all-white jury, heard the recording, and we got a conviction, and it was the first time in 30 years, and it's something that, it shows that in this county, we at least strive for equal justice under the law.
On that note, I'd like a big round of applause for our State Attorney General, who came out with a little sniffle and ended up doing a great job.
Ken?
Great.
Ken?
Yes, sir.
When does the state attorney's term expire? This year, so you're on the ballot.
Yes.
Would you like us to vote for you?
There's a rumor.
Thank you.
There's a rumor that we need to vote for Dave Aronberg.
Yay!
Just a rumor, guys.
DA for DA.
For governor or president? Okay. Thank you. Thank you for coming. We officially adjourn this meeting.
Good night, I'll call you.